Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Nikon 400mm f4.5 VRS for Z mount. It's an amazing wildlife lens. It's one that I don't shoot too often because Emily has it a lot and she loves shooting it, but I have spent some time with this wonderful lens right here. So I want to talk about the pros, the cons, and how this thing works for wildlife photography. I'm going to show you some through the lens stuff, so you're going to actually get to see it performing live in the field. And I'm going to show you a bunch of photos so you can get to see some final results. So let's dive right into it. Some of the pros. I mean, this thing is so tiny and lightweight. Look at this thing. There's like nothing to it. I've got it here mounted on the Nikon Z8, which I think is, out of the cameras we own, I think it's the best balance. Actually, it feels like the best balanced on the Z8. The Z9, it feels a little too small in a way, but it's still wonderful to shoot. And the Z6 III, it becomes a little bit more front heavy, but with the Z8, I feel like this lens is made for this camera. So some other advantages. It's super sharp. It focuses really fast, so you can do birds in flight, action, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't feel like there's any limitation there. It has great stabilization, so you can really shoot at low shutter speeds. It does come with a lens foot here, but we remove that on pretty much all of our lenses. We never use a lens foot. We almost never mount our cameras on anything, and so we're hand holding them all the time. And so yeah, we just take that off completely, so it just kind of streamlines it, and then usually flip it upside down so it's a little bit more comfortable in your hand there. Another wonderful thing for me and my style of photography is it comes with the ability to, just like most Z lenses, do a memory set, a preset focus that you can save, and then you can recall that. So if you misfocus, catch the background, it feels like it gets stuck back there, especially when you're in the forest for songbird photography, you can pull it forward and get it right back, which is wonderful. And then I gotta say, one negative thing, is the lens hood on this one. I don't know if it's just our copy or what, but the lens hood is like pretty annoying to get on and off. And there's a bunch of times where we see something outside the van, Emily goes to grab it really quick, or sometimes I've gone to grab it really quick, and then you go to flip the lens hood and get it mounted on there, and you're just sitting there fumbling, and you almost want to just chuck the thing. It's a minor complaint. It is not a big deal. And actually it worked pretty good right there, but there's just a bunch of times, for whatever reason, it just kind of gets like stuck as you're rotating it. So a minor complaint there. And then one other thing that is a little bit more noticeable, well, specifically compared to this 100 to 400 back here, is this lens does not focus nearly as close. So the minimum focus distance is much greater. It's, I got the stats here, 8.21 feet on this lens right here. And at 400mm, this one is 3.2 feet. So less than half the distance, that lens can focus much closer than this. So that's kind of one downside there. But that's about it. Other than that, like I said, I love the lens, the handling, everything else about it is wonderful. So let's dive into some images here and take a look. Here's a nice little selection here. And like you can see, it works great for songbirds, shorebirds, wading birds, mammals, birds in flight, all that good stuff. So let's bring up some settings here and do some zooming in and really take a look here. Check sharpness. So these are all shot obviously with this lens. Most of them should be shot wide open. Every once in a while I've closed down the aperture, usually by mistake. And usually on the Z, I will say that's one interesting thing about this Z8. This is the only camera body that, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the configuration of it, but both Emily and I have the same issue. Both of us semi-regularly accidentally rotate this front wheel and change the aperture. Completely, not on purpose. It just happens, and then we're shooting and we realize like, oh, we've been shooting not wide open or at a different aperture than we thought. So I'm not sure what it is just with the shape of that Z8, but that does happen. But as you can see, incredible sharpness here on that image. Let's go to the puffin over here, zoom in right there. I mean, look at the details right here along that. You can just see some amazing details. So I'll leave the settings up on this so you guys can see. It also does really great with the smaller in frame stuff like this. Here's some birds I shot in Hawaii. Really nice small in frame. You can see there was not much to that bird in this frame. There was a lot of stuff around it, but it nailed the focus. Here's a few images to really show the background rendering too. This is a background that's, you got a little bit of distance there, but nothing crazy. It's not like it's a half a mile away background. And you can see it works really, really well there. And again, just incredibly sharp I'll swing over to this next one. This is another one that's a great image to sort of show that background rendering. And again, we got decent distance here, but nothing crazy. And you can see it's just really nice and soft. It's got that fast prime look. Of course, it's not as good as the 400-2.8. Obviously, there's a difference there, right? And it's not going to do what your 600 f4 will do or anything like that. But it does an amazing job, and it is definitely noticeably better than the 100-400. And it doesn't seem like that much, right? 4.5 to 5.6 at 400mm, but there is a difference in the look, and that's actually the main reason we got that lens, is because in tighter quarters, we were not liking the backgrounds as much, and it's just a little bit snappier. And so why have two 100-400 lenses for both Emily and I to shoot when we can have this one to mix in? All right, so here's some more low light, slow shutter stuff. So I mentioned that it's great because it's so light and hand holdable. You can really get away with shooting slow shutter speeds. So here's 60th of a second. Let's get a little bit slower here at 40th of a second. There's the final image right there. And let's go all the way down to 30th of a second. Shooting in really low light dawn conditions for this wood stork image here. And you can see pushing the ISO a little bit, but I wanted to keep that noise level low. And there you go, 2500 ISO, 30th of a second handheld texture. I mean, look at the texture and detail in there at 100% zoom. It looks amazing. Also, all the images you're seeing right here, none of them have any extra sharpening. It's just my standard default sharpening in Lightroom, which is very minimal. A few of them might have some minor noise reduction, but most of them don't have really anything else done to them. These are the raw files we're looking at just with my basic edits and no additional sharpening or any of that. So I wanted to make that clear. All right, let's look at some Songbird photography. And actually, we're gonna hop right over to watch a video here, and I'll show you this just so you can kind of see what the focus performs like here. So you can see I have this black-throated green warbler. This was up in the forest in Newfoundland there, and it's gonna pop out in a second here, and then you're gonna see some eye tracking going in. Almost all these videos are using animal eye tracking. I find that it works much better with these smaller birds, and when things are smaller in frame, when they get out there a little bit further, these guys are gonna hop back and you're gonna see through that viewfinder again in just a second. So you can see when the bird does hold still, you're getting a little bit of eye tracking there, and it's doing a decent job of tracking that, giving me some nice sharp photos, or at least some nice sharp focus as that bird challengingly bounces around through the forest there. I wanted him to come out, but he did not want to come out there. All right, so let's take a look at some of those photos. So here's some of the photos that you just got to see being shot. Look at that, wonderful sharpness. 160th of a second, right? Again, I was trying to keep that ISO manageable, and this is how it works with warblers for me, guys. Everybody, I think a lot of people freak out about songbirds and warblers, and they see them like you just saw them in that video bouncing around, but in between all that crazy bouncing around, they're really holding still, and you can get some wonderfully sharp results there. So my shutter speeds most of the time for shooting these songbirds a little bit lower, so I can manage that ISO and keep things a little bit lower there. And again, here's another great small in frame shot. Look at the detail, the little feathers off the back of the head there. You can see a ton of feather detail. I mean, this is on par with the 400-8 as far as sharpness and detail, and especially that fine macro detail, even when you get smaller in frame. And so absolutely no hesitation to pick this lens up to photograph anything, right? It's just a nice, easy way to have a fast lens, a reasonably fast aperture lens, and it's going to do a great job in the forest. Here's another one from that video that we were just watching, and look at that sharpness. Of course, the 2.8 is just that little bit better, but it's also way heavier and far more expensive. So a reasonably priced lens here as well. All right, so here's a few more images, just some shorebirds and wading birds. And again, we'll pop over to a video in just a second and show some of that, but look at this small in frame stuff, even at ISO 2000, looking pretty good. 500th of a second, tricolored heron flying, nailed the focus, right? So there you go. Look at that fine detail on this sanderling running across the open beach like that. 6/40th of a second, did the trick. This thing stayed right with it, tracked it, did a great job. So for shorebird photography, I never hesitate to bring it. And actually, I would bring this far more than I would the 2.8 lens, unless I knew I needed a lot more reach and sort of required that built-in teleconverter. For everything else though, even in this early dawn dusk light, look at that. Incredible details, even in the soft light, it just works like a charm. So let's go back to the videos here and watch some shorebird photography. So to start out, you can see I'm in animal eye tracking. So the bird's just a little bit far away. We're getting some photos. We're not quite eye tracking yet, but as it gets a little bit closer, you're gonna see that eye tracking start to pick up as that bird gets in there. And there we're starting to get the head tracking. And then in a little bit, we'll start getting that eye tracking. And this is shot with that 400-4.5. So you can get to see, this is what it looks like. This is the performance you're getting looking at these birds, these quick moving shorebirds running around out there. The focus is sticky, it stays right with them. And there's that shot we just zoomed in and looked at on the back of the computer. Look at that, tracking them right there, running right across. All right, so a few more images to look at here, wading birds and some flight stuff. All right, that's gonna be important to show. We got this flight stuff here. These birds are moving quick, sometimes towards the lens. I gotta say, this thing is just fast, it's snappy. I'm just gonna stay zoomed in on a few of these just so you can see the 100% zoom of these birds in flight, so you can get an idea of what it's looking like with this lens. There we go, we're even catching a really quick puffin coming in some beautiful light, and then a northern gannet cruising through like that. All right, so flight stuff, it works great. And then I'll do one more video just showing you a little bit more of the eye tracking here. Here's this bald eagle. Just a nice sitting there stationary subject, large subject, not too small in frame. And you can see the focus, the eye tracking is just sticking right with it there, doing no problem. This is where you would expect it to work just fine. That's just me changing some settings, and there I am back on the focus there. It's sticking right with that front eye, giving me exactly what I want and need there. So we're getting some nice sharp results. And then if we go right back to the beginning here, there's one of the photos from that, and you can see, I think you can tell there's some good detail there, right? Look at that, we can see the flex in the eye, every single individual feather detail. It's an amazing lens, guys, it really is. All right, so after the flight stuff, some of my favorite lighting, shooting into the sun, the backlit stuff, shooting into the bokeh there. Here's a good idea of what it looks like with the rendering of the bokeh. It's really nice and smooth. You get some nice soft bokeh balls. Here's that same bald eagle a little bit later backlit. So this tends to be a little bit more challenging, right? We're shooting into the sun, a little bit of lens flare, stuff like that. But again, this lens is doing a tremendous job of tracking, giving us plenty sharp details. And yeah, I mean, it's just right up there with the best of the lenses. It really is. And so I highly, highly recommend this lens for wildlife. And then here's one of my favorite images, really showing what those bokeh balls look like. And I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see just the nice sharp details that that image is giving us. I want to mention, gotten this lens and most of the gear you see behind me all through my absolute favorite camera store, Hunt's Photo and Video. I've worked with Gary Farber. He's an amazing dude. And I just want to say this real quick. The big difference in my experience with them is that you get that sort of small town local camera shop feel. I get a personal service. I can call Gary up or some of the other people that I've worked with there and talk to them directly. I actually just got to stop into one of their major stores in Boston, which was a great time, but you get that personalized service and just an amazing camera store. So if you are looking to buy this stuff, I just recommend checking them out. You know, there's a ton of places to buy this stuff easily. You know, if you're just looking for the best price, the cheapest price, and you just want to get camera gear and that's all you care about, go anywhere, right? But if you really do want to form a relationship with a camera store, have somebody you can work with, somebody that knows you directly and actually cares about you, check out Hunt's Photo and Video. I highly recommend them, and just great people to work with, seriously great people. That's pretty much it, guys. That's what I think about this lens. It's a wonderful lens. I highly recommend it for anybody interested in wildlife photography. It's going to cover all your bases. Of course, a zoom lens like that 100-400 right back here is going to be a little bit more flexible. But if you want, I would say this is sort of, for Nikon, the best all-around prime lens for wildlife and bird photography. I would call it this. Reasonably priced, so not cheap, but not crazy expensive. It's right in that mid-range, and just so portable and light. Reasonably fast aperture, right? 4.5. You're letting in a decent amount of light, so your ISO doesn't skyrocket that high. You can get your shutter speed up for those action shots when the light's even lower. And as you saw over and over again, just tack sharp. And boy, I mean, no joke, guys, you can shoot this thing with one hand. It's that well balanced. It just balances right there. Get those shots. I don't do that often, but you can if you wanted to. It's an amazing all-around lens, highly recommended. The only thing that beats it sort of speed and quality is the 400-2.8, and that's just in another whole class, both with price, weight, and just difficulty shooting. So love the lens. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next review.